For years, the early Muslims faced severe physical persecution among the jagged mountains of Mecca. To survive, they were forced to leave everything behind. They arrived in Medina. Behind these lush state groves, the landscape offered a natural barrier against the harsh desert and a temporary sense of peace for the migrants. But the physical safety was deceptive. While the visible attacks from outside the city had stopped, a new type of conflict was developing quietly within the community itself. Living in a sanctuary does not guarantee safety. A hidden enemy standing in the same ranks as the believers proved to be more dangerous than any army they had faced in the open desert. This was the threat of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites. These men performed every physical ritual of the faith, but their participation was a mask for deep-seated disbelief and active treachery. This internal deception created a crisis of trust. In a vulnerable, newly formed society, it became impossible to distinguish a genuine ally from someone quietly planning a betrayal. To address this climate of doubt, the longest chapter of the Quran was revealed, Surah Al-Baqarah. It provided the community with the specific definitions and laws required to identify these hidden actors and strip away their masks. The surah removes all ambiguity by dividing the human soul into three absolute categories: those who believe, those who openly disbelieve, and the hypocrites who attempt to survive in the shadows between them. To illustrate the cost of this hesitation, the surah looks back thousands of years to an ancient murder mystery. A wealthy man was killed by his own nephew, who then dumped the body at the gates of a rival tribe to spark a conflict. When the tribe sought justice from Prophet Moses, he received a specific divine command to solve the crime. They were told to sacrifice a cow. Instead of following the instruction, the people stalled. They demanded to know the cow's exact age, its precise color, and its daily work habits. They used these questions to delay the actual act of obedience. Because of this stalling, the criteria became so narrow that they were forced to buy the only qualifying cow in the region for its weight in pure gold. The sacrifice was eventually made. When a piece of the animal was used to strike the victim, the dead man was momentarily resurrected to identify his killer before returning to the grave. The cow's resurrection proved God's power over life and death, but it also demonstrated the outcome of defensive questioning. When simple commands are met with endless hesitation, the cost of faith rises until it is nearly impossible to pay. The surah then examines the extreme of disbelief in the ancient city of Babylon. Here, society had abandoned divine law entirely to pursue the power of demonic magic. Two angels, Harut and Marut, were sent to the city in human form. Their presence served as a deliberate test for the people. The angels explicitly warned everyone that they were a trial and that learning their knowledge would result in spiritual ruin. Despite the warning, the people chose to learn the magic, trading their long-term salvation for immediate influence over others. Surah Al-Baqarah establishes a clear boundary here. The practice of dark magic is defined as polytheism. It is a choice that excludes an individual from any ultimate success. A later generation of Israelites, who had lost their homes and children to their enemies, were eventually given a leader named Talut to lead them in a counteroffensive. On the march to battle, they reached a river. Talut commanded his parched army to take only a single handful of water. This was a test of absolute discipline before they faced a superior force. Thousands failed the test and were left behind. Only 313 men possessed the discipline to cross the river and face the army of the warlord Goliath. Among that small group was the young David, who struck down Goliath and broke the enemy's power. This victory showed that success is not determined by physical numbers or military equipment. It is earned through the internal discipline of faith. These historical lessons return to the prophet in Medina. For 17 months he prayed toward Jerusalem, while the hypocrites mocked him for following a direction that was not his own. The prophet frequently looked toward the sky in silence, hoping for a sign that would distinguish the believers from those who used the direction of prayer as a tool for mockery. The response arrived within Surah Al-Baqarah. God commanded the community to immediately pivot their direction of prayer toward the Kaaba in Mecca. This sudden shift acted as a final filter. Those who followed the change without question solidified their identity as a unified community, while the hypocrites were exposed by their refusal to adapt. The surah eventually expands into the structural details of a functioning society. It defines laws for interest-free lending, protections within a marriage, and the legal requirements for divorce. Included in these verses is the Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. The Prophet taught that for anyone who recites this specific verse after their daily prayers, only the moment of death stands between them and the entrance to paradise. The final 2 verses of this surah have a unique origin. While the rest of the book was brought down to earth by an angel, these verses were given directly to the Prophet during his night journey, at the furthest boundary of the heavens. Surah Al-Baqarah functions as an active defense against doubt and external threats. It is described as a shield for any home where it is recited. If you want to see more histories of the Quran, share this video and let us know which surah we should cover next.